Cinemassacre's Kongathon. In 2005, Kong was remade again. Universal offered the directing job to Peter Jackson, and following the success of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, it went into production. It seemed he was able to get a lot of artistic control, becoming one of the auteur directors of our time. That's when a movie has a signature stamp, a look and feel that makes it seem it's all coming from an individual artist, even though, of course, movies are a huge collaborative effort. Most of the crew was the same group of artists he assembled for the Lord of the Rings trilogy, so it was a smooth transition straight off of Return of the King, the only fantasy sequel to win a Best Picture award. Right away, it had all the signs that it would get the best possible treatment, but what sold me was getting the chance to know beforehand who Peter Jackson was and his relationship with Kong. Like me, he was inspired by the original Kong as a child. It was clear he had a lot of respect for the original, and during the production of the remake, he did a web series in which he was able to show us behind-the-scenes footage without spoiling much. It brought us closer to the filmmaking experience, so we were with him every step of the way. Also, even though Kong and all the creatures were computer-generated, he had experience with the classic style of effects in recreating a lost scene from the original. When Kong throws everybody into the pit, we assume they just die, but originally the scene continued at the bottom of the pit where they fight giant spiders and creatures. This part was cut and destroyed, and to this day only a still image exists. Just for fun, Peter Jackson and company decided to film their own version of this scene. Based on the original script, they did their best job to make it as authentic as possible, as if this is what the scene might have been like. They shot it on film with the same camera, using stop motion and all the old techniques. They had to overcome the same challenges as in 1933 and got a hands-on appreciation out of it. It was included on one of the DVD editions of the original Kong, but Jackson insisted that it would not be edited into the film itself, but provided as a separate bonus feature because he didn't want to put his own fingerprints on the original film. Given all this context of how much he respected the original, I was totally on board with the remake. In most other situations, I would have been against it, but with this, they made all the right moves. I was really hyped for it, and when I saw it, I thoroughly enjoyed it. Even though nothing will ever come close to the original, I saw this as a loving tribute. It's set in the 30s, making it the only Kong remake to take place in the same time period as the original. I've always had conflicting thoughts about that. It's nice to have a bigger window to look into the world that the original took place in, but on the other hand, it would have been nice to differentiate it more from the original. The main plot is the same, though once again, the circumstances which bring everybody onto the boat are different. Jack Driscoll, for instance, is the writer of the film that Carl Denham is intending to make, and the dialogue includes lines from the original, almost as if they're filming scenes from the original Kong. I like the cast. I like Adrian Brody, Naomi Watts, and I also like Jack Black, but in this particular film, I'm conflicted. I like him in other films. I love Tenacious D, but I don't really see him as Carl Denham. He has the face of a quirky artist, not a greedy businessman. There's nothing wrong with his performance. I just think of all the people who could play Carl Denham, it was an odd choice. Kong himself is great. Even though it's CG, there is somebody actually performing him, the master of motion capture, Andy Serkis. It makes sense that every Kong film utilizes the special effect techniques of their time. It also stands as a marker in film history to measure the time span from the original Kong and to show what it looks like in this day and age. The CG is done with the best care possible. It looks the best it possibly can, and if you compare it with the original, of course the effects in the remake are more versatile and more convincing, but no matter what, it's not as appealing as the stop motion, and I would even argue that with the 76 version at its best moments looks more real because there's actually physically something there. Of course, without the CG, we wouldn't be able to have such an epic T-Rex battle scene. The creatures are able to move around so much and swing on vines. I really like the part when the T-Rex is tangled, but he wants to eat Anne so badly he doesn't care. The fact that he's wrapped up in vines is not a concern. It's more important that he gets her in his mouth. Then after Kong defeats them all, he stands next to Anne, turning his head the other way as if to say, "I saved you. Don't say thanks or anything." The body language is great. Kong is able to convey a lot of emotion. I also really like when he tips over Anne and laughs. What an ass. There's one major problem with this movie, and it's an obvious one. It's too long. Many people have probably said that already, but it's true. There's too much filler, too much fat. In the theater, I didn't mind it, though my bladder minded. By the time I got to the 3-hour mark, I had to piss. Wish I didn't drink anything, but I kept saying, "Fuck you, bladder. Kong's swatting down planes. I'm not leaving my seat for anything." But seriously, when you look at the original film and how efficiently it tells its story, you realize you don't need all that detail, like Anne losing her job, Denham getting the idea to go to Skull Island, and the long voyage itself. Even though I enjoy the details, I liked all the little things like seeing Kong climbing up into his mountain lair and seeing all those skeletons of other Kongs suggesting that he might be the last of his kind. I see it as a supplement to the original film, an extension of it. It makes the world bigger. When we're in New York City, they show us every aspect of it to make us feel like we're really in 1930s New York. And on Skull Island, we get a sense of the whole land, the natives, and wildlife. There's a documentary on the DVD about New York in the 30s which covers the Depression, vaudeville, and Prohibition. But then you have a fictional documentary about Skull Island which elaborates on how all these animals came to be there. Having a fake documentary alongside a real one made the fiction seem more real. The original film tells the story better and more concisely, but this one is more about building the world. As much as I like this film, watching it at home, I'm never able to enjoy it quite as much as I did in the theater. The initial hype I had has long worn off, and I'm never able to recapture that same feeling. It doesn't hold up in the same way the original does, not that I'd expect it to. It makes you appreciate the original even more, so this remake sort of did a service to it by showing us, even in 2005, with a budget exceeding $200 million, the original still can't be duplicated. In one of his web videos, Peter Jackson said there was going to be 2 sequels, Son of Kong and Into the Wolf's Lair. They would have taken place 10 years later during World War II. The plot involved Kong's son being used by Denham to help in the war and fight against monsters created by the Nazis. If it sounds too amazing to be true, it is. The video was posted on April 1st. Yeah, it was a joke, but they have interview clips from the cast and crew, and everybody has a straight face. They even show you miniatures and preliminary work to back it up. It's really funny how serious they play it. I kind of wish these sequels would have actually happened, and that's when I realized how much I like Kong films, even if it's B-movie quality. I'm in. That's why I'm looking forward to Skull Island. It's not a remake, it's just another movie with Kong. No high expectations, just a good cast with John Goodman and Samuel L. Jackson. I'm sure it'll be fun.